The sound of shattering glass against the wall beside her head barely made Lydia Kennedy flinch anymore. She stood perfectly still in the corner of the cramped kitchen, her hands clasped tightly in front of her stained apron, eyes fixed on the floorboards as her stepfather's boots thundered across the room toward her. It was Nevada in 1873, and the mining town of Pahrump offered little mercy to a 20-year-old woman with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. "Worthless," Marcus spat, his breath reeking of whiskey even though it was barely past noon. "You cannot even wash dishes without breaking them, you stupid girl." The dish had slipped from her chapped, work-worn hands, but Lydia knew better than to explain. Explanations only made things worse. Her mother had died 2 winters ago, leaving her alone with this man who had been cruel even when her mother was alive, but had grown monstrously worse in her absence. "I am sorry," she whispered, the words automatic, hollow. "Sorry does not fix what you broke. That comes out of your food money this week." She nodded, though she had not had a proper meal in 3 days already. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but she was used to that too. Used to everything. The insults, the backhand across her face when his temper flared higher, the constant reminders that she was a burden, worthless. Lucky he even kept a roof over her ungrateful head. That night, as she lay on the thin pallet in the storage room that served as her bedroom, Lydia stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was all her life would ever be. She had tried to find work in town, but Marcus had made sure everyone knew she was spoken for, under his care, and any wages she earned were his by right. The few times someone had offered her employment, he had shown up drunk and threatening until they rescinded the offer. She was trapped. The next morning, Marcus announced he was taking her with him up to the trading post near the base of the Spring Mountains. He needed supplies and someone to carry them, and she was good for at least that much, he said. Lydia gathered her threadbare shawl and followed him to the wagon without a word. The journey took most of the day, the October sun beating down mercilessly even as autumn should have brought cooler weather. Marcus drank from his flask and muttered to himself, occasionally barking orders at her to move this or adjust that. When they finally reached the trading post, a rough wooden structure that served the miners and trappers who worked the mountain regions, Lydia felt a small measure of relief just to be away from their house. The trading post was busier than she expected. Several rough-looking men milled about, examining goods, trading furs and gold dust for supplies. Lydia kept her head down and stayed close to the wagon while Marcus went inside to conduct his business. "Miss." The voice was deep but gentle, and so unexpected that Lydia actually looked up before she could stop herself. The man standing a few feet away was unlike anyone she had ever seen. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that strained against his buckskin shirt. His arms, crossed loosely over his chest, were thick with muscle, and his hands looked strong enough to break wood with ease. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, tied back loosely with a leather cord, and his tanned face was striking despite the beard that covered his jaw. But it was his eyes that caught her, warm brown eyes that held something she could not quite identify. Concern, maybe, or kindness. She looked away immediately, her heart hammering. Men did not speak to her kindly. Men did not speak to her at all unless it was to order her around or comment on her worthlessness. "I did not mean to startle you," the man said, and she heard him take a step back, giving her space. "I just noticed you have been standing in the sun for a while. There is shade by the water trough if you would like to rest." Lydia opened her mouth, then closed it. Her throat felt tight. She managed a small shake of her head. "All right," he said easily, "but the offer stands if you change your mind." Then he walked away, his heavy boots crunching on the dirt, and Lydia felt something strange flutter in her chest. Confusion, perhaps. Why had he spoken to her like that? Like she was a person deserving of consideration. She pushed the thought away. It did not matter. But 20 minutes later, when the sun had grown even hotter and her vision had started to swim with dehydration and hunger, she found herself glancing toward the water trough. The tall man was not there. No one was watching. Quickly, before she could lose her nerve, Lydia hurried over to the shade and dipped her hands in the cool water, bringing it to her lips and drinking deeply. That is better. She spun around, water dripping from her chin, and found the man standing several yards away, a small smile on his face. He held up one hand. "I did not mean to scare you again. I am Nathan Voss. I have a camp up in the mountains." He gestured vaguely toward the peaks rising in the distance. "I come down every few weeks for supplies." Lydia said nothing, her pulse racing. She should not be talking to a strange man. Marcus would be furious if he saw. Nathan seemed to understand her silence. "You do not have to tell me your name if you do not want to," he said gently. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right. You look like you have not eaten in a while." Her face flushed with shame. Was it that obvious? Could everyone see how pathetic she was? "I am fine," she managed to whisper. Though her voice cracked on the words, Nathan studied her for a long moment, and she felt those warm eyes taking in her too thin frame, her worn dress, the bruise on her cheek that she had tried to hide with her hair. His expression darkened slightly, but when he spoke, his voice remained gentle. "If you say so," he said. "But if you are not, if you ever need help, the traders here know how to reach me. My camp is not far. Anyone who needs shelter is welcome." Before she could respond, Marcus's voice bellowed across the yard. "Lydia, get over here and load this wagon." She flinched at the sound of her name, and something flickered across Nathan's face. Understanding, maybe, or anger on her behalf, though she could not imagine why a stranger would care. "I have to go," she whispered, and hurried away before he could respond. As she hefted heavy sacks of flour and beans into the wagon under Marcus's impatient glare, she could feel Nathan's eyes on her. It made her uncomfortable and strangely warm all at once. No one had ever looked at her like that before, like she mattered. On the ride back to Pahrump, Marcus was in a foul mood. He had lost money gambling with some of the other men, and he blamed Lydia for distracting him by being useless and embarrassing him in public. She absorbed his words like she always did, letting them wash over her without really hearing them. But in the back of her mind, she kept hearing Nathan's voice. "You look like you have not eaten in a while. If you ever need help, anyone who needs shelter is welcome." That night, Marcus hit her for burning the dinner. It was not a hard blow, not like some of the others had been, but it was enough to split her lip. As she lay on her pallet afterward, tasting blood, Lydia let herself imagine for just a moment what it might be like to take Nathan up on his offer. But no, that was foolishness. She had nowhere to go, no skills, no money. And Marcus had made it clear many times that if she ever tried to leave, he would find her and make her regret it. Better to endure what she knew than risk something worse. Still, for the first time in years, a tiny seed of hope had been planted in her heart. Someone had spoken kindly to her. Someone had seen her as a person, not just a burden to be tolerated. It was more than she had ever had before. 3 weeks passed, each day much like the one before. Lydia worked from dawn until long after dark, cooking and cleaning and tending to Marcus's few animals. He drank, he yelled. He reminded her constantly of her worthlessness. She bore it all in silence, as she always had. But something had changed inside her. That small seed of hope had taken root, and though she tried to ignore it, it grew stronger each day. She found herself thinking about Nathan Voss at odd moments, remembering the gentleness in his voice, the concern in his eyes. It was a dangerous thing to think about, she knew. Hope could hurt worse than any blow if it led nowhere. Then one afternoon in early November, Marcus announced they were going back to the trading post. He needed more supplies, he said, though Lydia suspected he really just wanted to gamble again. She climbed into the wagon without complaint, her heart beating faster than it should at the thought of possibly seeing Nathan again. The trading post was quieter this time, with only a handful of people milling about. Lydia scanned the area as subtly as she could, but she did not see Nathan anywhere. Disappointment settled in her stomach like a stone. Of course he would not be here. He probably came down once a month at most, and she had no right to expect anything different. She was helping Marcus load supplies when she heard that deep, gentle voice again. "Let me help you with that." Lydia nearly dropped the crate she was carrying. Nathan had appeared beside her, and before she could protest, he had taken the heavy load from her hands as easily as if it weighed nothing. His arms flexed with the movement, muscles shifting beneath his shirt, and she found herself staring for a moment before she caught herself. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly she was not sure he heard, but he smiled and she knew he had. "You are welcome. That is too heavy for someone your size to be carrying alone." "She can manage just fine," Marcus said sharply, appearing at her elbow. "We do not need help." Nathan set the crate in the wagon with deliberate care, then turned to face Marcus. He was several inches taller and significantly broader, and though his expression remained calm, there was something unmistakably protective in his posture. "No trouble at all," Nathan said evenly. "Just being neighborly." Marcus's face reddened. "Well, we do not need neighborly. Come on, Lydia." But Nathan was not done. "Forgive me, but I noticed the lady has been doing all the heavy lifting. You might want to help her. Those crates are 60 pounds each." The way he said "lady" made Lydia's throat tighten. No one had ever called her that before. Marcus stepped closer to Nathan, puffing up like an angry rooster. "How I manage my stepdaughter is none of your concern, mountain man." "You are right," Nathan agreed. "As long as she is being treated well, it is none of my concern." His eyes flicked to Lydia, taking in her too thin frame, the new bruise on her arm. "But if she is not being treated well, that is a different matter." "Are you accusing me of something?" "I am just making an observation." The tension between the two men was thick enough to cut. Lydia felt panic rising in her chest. This was bad. Marcus would make her pay for this later, for embarrassing him, for attracting the attention of another man. "I am fine," she said quickly, desperately. "Please, I am fine." "We should go, Marcus." Marcus grabbed her arm roughly, fingers digging into her flesh. "That is right, we are leaving. And you," he jabbed a finger at Nathan, "stay away from what is mine." Nathan's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "She is a person, not property," he said quietly, "but I will not cause trouble today." As Marcus hauled her toward the wagon, Lydia dared one last glance back at Nathan. He was watching her with an expression of deep concern, and when their eyes met, he mouthed two words: "Be safe." Those two words haunted her the entire ride home. Marcus was furious, ranting about interfering strangers and ungrateful girls who attracted the wrong kind of attention. Lydia tried to make herself small in the corner of the wagon seat, but it did not matter. The moment they arrived home, he backhanded her across the face hard enough to knock her to the ground. "You think you can flirt with other men, make me look like a fool?" "I was not flirting," she gasped, tasting blood. "I did not do anything. You exist. That is enough." The beating was worse than usual. When it was over, Lydia dragged herself to her pallet and curled into a ball, pain radiating through her ribs and back. She was fairly certain nothing was broken, but everything hurt. As she lay there in the darkness, she made a decision. She could not live like this anymore. Nathan had offered her shelter, had told her the traders knew how to reach him. It was a risk, a huge risk, but staying here would kill her eventually. Marcus's violence was escalating, and one day he would hit her hard enough that she would not get back up. She had to try. It took her 2 weeks to gather the courage and make a plan. She had to wait for Marcus to go into town alone, which happened rarely, but finally the opportunity came. He needed to meet with someone about a business deal, he said, and he would be gone most of the day. For once, he did not require her to come along. The moment his wagon disappeared down the road, Lydia sprang into action. She packed what little she owned into a small cloth bundle, stole a canteen of water and some dried meat from the kitchen, and set out walking toward the mountains. She had no horse, no real supplies, no plan beyond reaching the trading post and asking the traders to send word to Nathan. It was foolish and desperate, but desperation had given her a strange kind of strength. Her ribs still ached from the beating 2 weeks ago, and she knew she could not survive many more like it. The walk to the trading post took all day. By the time she arrived, the sun was setting and her feet were blistered and bleeding through her worn shoes. The trader, a gruff man named Samuel, took one look at her and immediately brought her inside. "You are Marcus Kennedy's stepdaughter," he said, not unkindly. "What are you doing out here alone?" "I need to get a message to Nathan Voss," she said, her voice shaking. "He said you knew how to reach him. He said anyone who needed shelter was welcome at his camp." Samuel studied her for a long moment, taking in her bruises, her frightened eyes, her desperate demeanor. Then he nodded slowly. "I can send word. But it will take a day for the message to reach him and another day for him to come down, assuming he is at his camp. You can wait here." "Marcus will come looking for me," Lydia said, fear clawing at her throat, "when he realizes I am gone." "Then we will deal with that when it happens," Samuel said firmly. "But I am not sending you back to that house. I have seen the way you look, seen the bruises. A man who treats a woman like that deserves a bullet, not loyalty." His words startled her. She had thought everyone in Pahrump either did not notice or did not care about her situation. But Samuel's expression was kind, and when his wife Martha appeared with a bowl of stew and a soft blanket, Lydia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "No thanks needed, child," Martha said gently. "You eat up and rest. You are safe here." Nathan received the message the next morning and set out for the trading post immediately. The thought of Lydia, frightened and desperate enough to make the long walk alone, made his chest tight with concern and anger. He had seen enough in his 40 years to recognize an abused woman when he saw one, and everything about Lydia Kennedy spoke of someone who had been systematically broken down over years. It made him want to find Marcus and teach him what it felt like to be on the receiving end of violence. But more than that, it made him want to protect Lydia, to show her that not all men were cruel, that she deserved kindness and respect and safety. He had been alone in the mountains for 5 years, ever since his wife had died in childbirth along with their son. The grief had driven him away from civilization, into the wild places where he could trap and hunt and not have to face the pitying looks of townspeople. He had built a good life for himself up there, a solitary but peaceful existence. But the moment he had seen Lydia standing in the sun at the trading post 2 months ago, something had shifted inside him. She had looked so small, so fragile, so resigned to suffering. And when their eyes had met, he had felt a connection he could not explain, a pull toward her that had only grown stronger with time. He reached the trading post by late afternoon. Samuel met him at the door, his expression grave. "She is inside," Samuel said quietly. "Marcus came looking for her this morning. I sent him away, told him I had not seen her, but he did not believe me. He will be back, probably with the sheriff." The sheriff is in Marcus's pocket, Nathan said flatly. Everyone knows it, which is why you need to get her out of here quickly. Take her up to your camp where he cannot reach her. Nathan nodded. Is she all right? Physically, mostly. Underfed, bruised, exhausted. But she is scared, Nathan. Really scared. Whatever you do, move slowly. She is like a wild animal that has been beaten too many times. Nathan found Lydia sitting in the corner of the trading post's back room, the blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked up when he entered, and the fear in her eyes made his heart ache. "Hello, Lydia," he said gently, keeping his distance. "Samuel sent me word that you needed help." She nodded, her throat working as she tried to speak. Finally, she managed, "I am sorry to be a burden. I did not know where else to go." "You are not a burden," Nathan said firmly. "You are a person in need of help, and I am glad you came to me. I meant what I said before. Anyone who needs shelter is welcome at my camp." "Marcus will look for me," she whispered. "He will be angry." "Let him be angry. He cannot reach you in the mountains. My camp is several hours from here, up trails he does not know. You will be safe there." Lydia looked at him with something like hope in her eyes, mixed with disbelief. "Why would you help me? You do not even know me." Nathan moved slowly closer and crouched down so he was at her eye level, careful not to invade her space. "Because you deserve help," he said simply. "Because no one should have to live the way you have been living. And because when I look at you, I see someone who has survived things that would have broken most people. That takes strength, Lydia. You are stronger than you know." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I do not feel strong." "You walked all day alone to escape a bad situation. That is one of the bravest things a person can do." She wiped at her eyes with a trembling hand. "What if Marcus finds me? What if he makes me go back?" "I will not let that happen," Nathan said, and the quiet conviction in his voice made her look up. "You have my word. You are under my protection now." Something in his words, or maybe the steady warmth in his eyes, made Lydia take a shaky breath and nod. "All right," she said softly. "I will go with you." Nathan smiled, and it transformed his rugged face into something almost gentle. "Good. We will leave at first light. It is too dangerous to travel the mountain trails at night. Samuel and Martha will keep you safe tonight." But as evening fell, Marcus returned to the trading post, this time with Sheriff Dawson in tow. Nathan was outside checking his horse when they arrived, and he straightened slowly as the two men approached. "I hear you are harboring a runaway," Marcus said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "My stepdaughter. She is not of sound mind, and I need to take her home." "She is an adult woman who left of her own free will," Nathan replied calmly. "She does not want to go back." "She is under my care and my responsibility," Marcus insisted. "Sheriff, tell him he has to turn her over." Sheriff Dawson, a heavy-set man with calculating eyes, cleared his throat. "Technically, if she is over 18, she can make her own choices. But if Marcus here says she is not of sound mind, that changes things." "She is perfectly sound of mind," Nathan said, his voice hardening. "She is just tired of being beaten and starved." Marcus's face went red. "That is a lie. I have done nothing but provide for that ungrateful girl." "The bruises on her face tell a different story. She is clumsy, always has been." Nathan felt his temper flare, but he kept his voice level. "She is not going back with you, Marcus. Not tonight, not ever. If you try to force the issue, we are going to have a problem." "Are you threatening me?" Marcus sputtered. "I am stating a fact." Sheriff Dawson held up a hand. "Now, let us all calm down. Nathan, you are putting me in a difficult position here. If Marcus wants to file a complaint about his stepdaughter being held against her will—" "She is not being held against her will," Samuel interrupted, appearing in the doorway. "I was here when she arrived yesterday. She came of her own accord, asking for help to reach Nathan. She made it very clear she was leaving Marcus by choice." And you did not think to inform Marcus immediately?" The sheriff asked. "I did not see any reason to," Samuel replied flatly. "The girl looked like she had been through hell. I was not about to send her back to more of the same." Marcus took a step toward the trading post, but Nathan moved to block his path. "You are not going inside." "Get out of my way, mountain man." "No." The two men stood toe to toe, tension crackling in the air. Marcus was not a small man, but Nathan had several inches and at least 30 pounds of muscle on him. After a long moment, Marcus stepped back, his hands clenched into fists. "This is not over," he spat. "She belongs to me and I will get her back." "She belongs to herself," Nathan said quietly. "And the sooner you accept that, the better off you will be." Sheriff Dawson sighed. "Look, I am not going to arrest anyone tonight. But Marcus, if you have a legal claim to guardianship, you need to bring me the paperwork. And Nathan, if you are planning to take this girl up to your camp, you better make sure it is what she really wants. I will not have kidnapping charges filed in my county." "It is what she wants," Nathan said firmly. "You are welcome to ask her yourself." But when they brought Lydia out, she took one look at Marcus and went pale, shrinking back against the wall. Martha put a protective arm around her shoulders. "I am not going back," Lydia said, her voice barely above a whisper but steady. "I am leaving with Nathan." "Lydia, do not be foolish," Marcus said, his tone shifting to something that might have been concern if not for the anger glinting in his eyes. "You have no money, no prospects. What are you going to do? Live in the wilderness like a savage?" "I would rather live in the wilderness than spend one more day in your house," Lydia said. And Nathan felt a surge of pride at her courage. Marcus's face twisted with rage, but before he could respond, the sheriff stepped in. "All right, that is enough. The lady has made her choice clear. Marcus, you need to leave. We will sort out the legalities later if necessary." Marcus jabbed a finger at Lydia. "You will regret this. You will come crawling back, and when you do, I will not be so generous as to take you in again." "I will not come back," Lydia said, and though her voice shook, her eyes were clear. After Marcus and the sheriff left, Lydia sagged against the wall, trembling with adrenaline and fear. Nathan approached slowly, his hands visible and non-threatening. "You did well," he said gently. "I know that was hard. I thought he would drag me back," she admitted. "I thought the sheriff would let him." "Not while I am here," Nathan said. "You are safe, Lydia, I promise you that." She looked up at him with those haunted eyes, and he saw the exact moment she decided to trust him. It was a gift, he knew, one she did not give lightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for standing up for me. No one has ever done that before." "Then the world has been failing you," Nathan said, "but that ends now." They left at dawn the next morning. Nathan had a pack horse loaded with supplies, and he had acquired a gentle mare for Lydia to ride. She had admitted quietly that she had only ridden a handful of times in her life, so he chose the calmest horse Samuel had and helped her mount with careful, respectful hands. "Just hold the reins gently and let her follow my horse," Nathan instructed. "She knows the way. If you feel unsteady at any point, tell me and we will stop." The trail into the mountains was steep and winding, but breathtakingly beautiful. Lydia had never been this far from Pahrump, and despite her exhaustion and fear, she found herself marveling at the landscape. The desert gave way to rocky slopes dotted with pinyon pine and juniper, and the air grew cooler and cleaner as they climbed. Nathan set a slow, steady pace, checking on her frequently. Each time he looked back, his expression was kind and patient, never annoyed or impatient, even though she knew she was slowing him down. "How are you doing?" he asked after they had been riding for about 2 hours. "All right," Lydia said, though in truth her legs were aching and her hands were cramping from gripping the reins so tightly. Nathan must have heard something in her voice because he immediately called for a halt. Let us take a break. There is a good spot just ahead with water." He helped her dismount, his hands strong but gentle on her waist, and she stumbled slightly when her feet hit the ground. Her legs felt like jelly. Nathan steadied her without comment and led her to a fallen log where she could sit. "Drink this," he said, handing her a canteen, "and eat something." Martha packed some food for the journey. Lydia drank gratefully, then accepted the biscuit and dried meat he offered. She ate slowly, her stomach unused to regular food while Nathan tended to the horses. "How much farther is it?" she asked after a while. "About 3 more hours at this pace." "My camp is up near one of the spring sources. Good water, sheltered from the worst weather and remote enough that we do not get many visitors." "Is it lonely?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Nathan paused in his work and looked at her thoughtfully. "It has been," he admitted. "But I chose it. After my wife and son died, I needed the solitude, needed time to grieve away from people who wanted to help but did not know how." "I am sorry," Lydia said softly, "about your wife and son. Thank you. It has been 5 years now. The pain has dulled, though it never fully leaves." He returned to checking the horse's hooves, his movements practiced and sure. "What about you? You said Marcus was your stepfather. What happened to your mother?" "She died 2 winters ago. Fever." Lydia stared at her hands. "She was not strong, my mother. She let Marcus treat her badly, and she let him treat me badly too. I think she was relieved when she died, if I am honest. Relieved to be free of him. And you stayed." "I had nowhere else to go. No family, no money. And Marcus said if I left, he would find me and make me regret it." She looked up at Nathan. "I do not know what changed, why I finally decided to run. Maybe it was you speaking kindly to me. It made me realize that maybe life did not have to be like that. Maybe I deserved better." Nathan's expression softened. "You absolutely deserve better, Lydia. You deserve kindness and respect and safety. Those are not luxuries. They are basic human rights." No one had ever spoken to her like this before, like her feelings and well-being mattered. Lydia felt her eyes fill with tears, and she looked away embarrassed. "It is all right to cry," Nathan said gently. "You have been through a lot. You do not have to be strong every moment." "I do not want to be weak," she whispered. "Crying is not weakness. It is human." He finished with the horses and came to sit on the log beside her, careful to leave space between them. "And you have already shown more strength than most people ever have to. Leaving an abusive situation takes incredible courage." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the wind rustle through the trees and the burble of the nearby stream. Lydia found herself relaxing slightly, the knot of fear in her chest loosening just a little. Finally, Nathan stood and offered her his hand. "Ready to continue?" "We will take it slow." She nodded and let him help her up. His hand was warm and calloused, the hand of a man who worked hard with his body, but his grip was gentle. As they continued up the mountain, Lydia found herself stealing glances at him, trying to understand this man who had so thoroughly upended her world. He was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and kind eyes. His body moved with easy confidence, muscles shifting beneath his buckskin shirt as he guided his horse up the steep trail. But more than his appearance, it was his manner that fascinated her. He was patient and gentle, but there was also a quiet strength about him, a sense that he could handle anything that came his way. She had never known a man could be both strong and kind. Marcus was strong in body but cruel in spirit. The few other men she had known in Pahrump were either weak and complicit or rough and indifferent. But Nathan seemed to be something different entirely. It was late afternoon when they finally reached Nathan's camp. Lydia had been fighting exhaustion for the last hour, swaying in the saddle, and she barely registered their arrival until Nathan was helping her down from the horse. "Come on," he said gently. "Let me show you where you can rest." The camp was larger than she expected. Nathan had built a solid cabin from logs, with a stone chimney and real glass windows. There was a covered area for working and storing supplies, a small corral for the horses, and various other structures that spoke of someone who had put down roots, not just a temporary camp. "This is beautiful," Lydia said, looking around in wonder. "Thank you. I have put a lot of work into it over the years." Nathan led her to the cabin and opened the door. "It is not fancy, but it is warm and dry. Come inside." The interior was simple but well made. There was a large room with a fireplace, a kitchen area with a good stove, a sturdy table and chairs, and in the corner, a bed piled with furs and blankets. Lydia's heart skipped a beat when she saw the bed. Nathan noticed her hesitation immediately. "You will take the bed," he said firmly. "I have been sleeping outside most of the summer anyway. I will set up a bedroll in here for the colder nights, but there is plenty of room. You will have privacy." "I cannot take your bed," Lydia protested weakly. "Yes, you can and you will. You need proper rest, and that bed is the most comfortable place in the camp." He moved to the stove and began building a fire. "Sit down and rest. I will make us some dinner." Lydia sank into one of the chairs at the table, exhaustion crashing over her now that they had finally stopped moving. She watched as Nathan moved efficiently around the kitchen, pulling out supplies and starting a meal. His movements were practiced and confident, and she realized he must have been living alone successfully for years to be this self-sufficient. "Can I help?" she asked after a few minutes. "Not tonight. Tonight you rest." He glanced over his shoulder at her and smiled. "But once you are feeling stronger, I would welcome the help. I am a decent cook, but I would not say I enjoy it much." "I like cooking," Lydia said softly, "when I am allowed to cook actual food anyway." Nathan's expression darkened slightly. "How often did Marcus feed you properly?" "Not often. He said I did not work hard enough to earn full meals." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I know that probably sounds ridiculous." "It sounds like abuse," Nathan said bluntly. "And it makes me angry on your behalf, but you do not have to worry about that anymore. Here, you eat when you are hungry as much as you want." "Understood," Lydia nodded, her throat tight. It was still hard to believe this was real, that she was actually here, safe with a kind man who seemed genuinely concerned for her well-being. Dinner was simple but delicious. Venison stew with vegetables and fresh bread that Nathan had apparently baked the day before. Lydia ate slowly, savoring every bite, and Nathan seemed pleased by her appetite. "There is plenty more," he said when she hesitated over a second helping. "Please, eat your fill." After dinner, Nathan showed her the washroom he had built onto the side of the cabin, complete with a large basin and clean water he hauled up from the spring. He gave her soap and clean towels and a shirt of his to sleep in since she had not brought night clothes. "Take your time," he said. "I will be outside tending to the horses. When you are ready for bed, just let me know and I will make myself scarce." Alone in the cabin for the first time, Lydia looked around with a sense of unreality. This place was a paradise compared to the cramped, dirty house she had left behind. It was clean and well organized, with small touches that spoke of a man who took pride in his home. There were books on a shelf, hand-carved wooden bowls, a colorful blanket draped over the chair that looked like it might have belonged to his late wife. She washed carefully, amazed by the luxury of warm water and good soap. The shirt Nathan had given her was enormous on her small frame, but it was soft and clean and smelled faintly of pine and wood smoke. She climbed into the bed, which was more comfortable than anything she had ever slept on, and pulled the furs up to her chin. When Nathan came back inside an hour later, she was still awake, staring at the ceiling. "Cannot sleep," he asked quietly. I keep thinking I am going to wake up and find out this was a dream, she admitted. Nathan moved to where his bedroll was laid out on the opposite side of the room and began preparing it for the night. It is not a dream. You are safe here, Lydia. You do not have to be afraid anymore. I do not know how to not be afraid, she whispered. Fear has been my constant companion for so long. It will take time, Nathan said. Healing always does, but I promise you every day will be a little easier than the last, and I will do everything I can to help you feel safe. Why? The question burst out of her. Why are you being so kind to me? What do you want in return? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. I do not want anything in return, Lydia. I am helping you because it is the right thing to do, and because no one should have to live the way you have been living. That is all. There are no expectations, no debts. You are a guest in my home for as long as you need to be. Lydia felt tears slide down her temples into her hair. I do not understand. Men always want something. Not all men, Nathan said softly. Some of us actually believe in treating people with basic human decency. He turned down the lamp until only the firelight illuminated the room, then settled into his bedroll with his back to her, giving her privacy. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. But Lydia lay awake for a long time, staring into the darkness and trying to process everything that had happened. She was in the mountains with a stranger, miles from anything familiar, and yet somehow she felt safer than she had in years. Maybe Nathan was right. Maybe she did deserve kindness. Maybe not all men were like Marcus. It was a strange and wonderful thought to fall asleep with. Over the next few weeks, Lydia slowly began to settle into life at Nathan's camp. Each day followed a gentle rhythm. Nathan rose early to tend to the animals and check his trap lines, while Lydia slept until the morning sun woke her. She would find breakfast waiting for her, kept warm by the stove, along with a note from Nathan letting her know where he had gone and when he would return. At first she felt guilty for not working harder, for not earning her keep, but Nathan had been very clear. You are recovering, he told her firmly. Your body needs rest and proper food. There will be time for work later if you want to help, but right now your only job is to heal. So she rested. She ate the generous meals Nathan prepared. She explored the area around the cabin, marveling at the beauty of the mountains and the freedom of being able to walk without fear. And slowly, very slowly, she began to relax. Nathan was endlessly patient with her. He spoke to her gently, always asking permission before entering her space or touching her even casually. He told her stories about his life in the mountains, about the animals he tracked and the seasons he had witnessed. He asked about her interests, her thoughts, her dreams for the future. I do not have dreams, she said one evening as they sat by the fire after dinner. I never let myself think about the future. It hurt too much. Then maybe it is time to start, Nathan suggested. The future is yours now, Lydia. You can make it whatever you want. I do not even know what I want. That is all right. You have time to figure it out. He poked at the fire, sending sparks dancing up into the night. For what it is worth, I think you are a remarkable person. Smart, resilient, kind despite everything you have been through. Whatever you decide to do with your life, I have no doubt you will succeed. Lydia looked at him in the firelight, this strong, gentle man who had given her so much without asking for anything in return. You think I am smart? She asked quietly. Of course. You have learned everything I have shown you about camp life in just a few weeks. You are clever and observant and quick to understand things. He met her eyes. Has no one ever told you that before? She shook her head. Marcus said I was stupid, that I could not do anything right. Marcus was wrong about a lot of things, Nathan said, his voice hardening slightly. And he was especially wrong about you. The warmth in his words, the absolute conviction, made Lydia's heart flutter strangely. She looked away, confused by the feeling. As November turned into December and the weather grew colder, Lydia began to help more around the camp. She took over most of the cooking, which she genuinely enjoyed, and she helped Nathan prepare for winter by preserving meat and organizing supplies. He taught her how to shoot a rifle, how to track animals, how to read the weather in the clouds and wind. "You are a natural," he said one day after she successfully hit a target from 50 yards. "You have a steady hand and a good eye." The praise made her glow with pride. She had never been good at anything before, or at least, no one had ever told her she was. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk, or sometimes Nathan would read aloud from his collection of books. Lydia loved those nights, loved the sound of his deep voice bringing stories to life, loved the peaceful companionship of simply being near him. She was beginning to realize that what she felt for Nathan was more than gratitude. It was something deeper, something that made her heart race when he smiled at her, something that made her hyper-aware of his presence whenever he was near. She was falling in love with him. The realization terrified her. She had no experience with love, no idea how to navigate these feelings. And more than that, she was afraid of ruining the safety and peace she had found here. What if Nathan did not feel the same way? What if her feelings made things awkward and he sent her away? But Nathan seemed unaware of her internal turmoil. He continued to treat her with the same gentle kindness, the same patient respect. If anything, he seemed to go out of his way to maintain appropriate boundaries, never touching her more than necessary, always giving her space. It made her want to scream sometimes. Did he not see how she looked at him? Did he not feel the tension that seemed to crackle in the air between them? Or maybe he did see, and he simply did not return her feelings. Maybe he only saw her as a charity case, a broken woman he was helping out of the goodness of his heart. The thought made her chest ache. December brought the first real snow, blanketing the mountains in white. Lydia had never seen anything so beautiful. She stood in the doorway of the cabin, wrapped in a thick coat Nathan had given her, and watched the flakes fall in silence. Nathan came up beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not quite touching. "Beautiful, is it not?" he said softly. "I have never seen snow before," Lydia admitted. "It rarely snows in Pahrump. Then you have been missing out. Snow makes everything clean and quiet. It is peaceful." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the world transform. After a while, Nathan cleared his throat. "Lydia, there is something I need to talk to you about." Her heart dropped. This was it. He was going to tell her she needed to leave, that she had stayed long enough, that he wanted his solitude back. "All right," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know you have been through a lot," Nathan began, his eyes on the falling snow, "and I know you are still healing. But I want you to know that you are welcome to stay here as long as you like. Permanently if you want. You are not a burden and you are not a guest anymore. You are part of this place now." Lydia felt tears prick her eyes. "You want me to stay?" "I do." He finally looked at her, and the warmth in his eyes made her breath catch. "These past few weeks with you here have been good. Better than good. I had forgotten what it was like to have someone to talk to share meals with, to just be around. You make this place feel like a home again instead of just a camp." "I make you happy?" she asked, hardly daring to believe it. "You do," Nathan said simply. "Very much so." "You make me happy too," Lydia whispered. "Happier than I have ever been in my entire life." Something shifted in Nathan's expression, a softening around his eyes. "Good," he said. "That is good." They stood in the doorway as the snow fell, and Lydia felt hope blooming in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this could be more than just a safe harbor. Maybe this could be home. As Christmas approached, Nathan surprised Lydia by suggesting they celebrate. "I have not celebrated Christmas in years," he admitted, "but it seems like we should mark the occasion this year." "I do not know what we would do," Lydia said. "We do not have decorations or gifts or anything." "We can make decorations, and as for gifts, well, I might have an idea or two." He smiled at her, a genuine, warm smile that made her heart flutter. "I want you to have a good Christmas, Lydia, a happy one. You deserve that." Over the next few days, they worked together to prepare. Nathan cut down a small pine tree and brought it into the cabin, and they decorated it with carved wooden ornaments and strings of dried berries. Lydia baked special treats using their precious supply of sugar and flour, filling the cabin with the scent of cinnamon and vanilla. Nathan disappeared for an afternoon and returned with a wild turkey, which he claimed would make a fine Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve. They sat by the fire after dinner, sipping tea and watching the flames dance. The cabin was warm and cozy, the tree glittering in the firelight, and Lydia felt a contentment so deep it almost hurt. "Thank you," she said softly, "for all of this, for giving me a life worth living." Nathan set down his cup and turned to look at her. "Lydia, I need to tell you something." Her heart started to pound. "What is it?" "I know I said you could stay here as a guest, as a friend, and that is still true, but I need you to know that my feelings for you have grown into something more than friendship." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I care about you deeply. I think about you constantly. You have brought light and joy back into my life, and I cannot imagine my days without you anymore." Lydia stared at him, hardly daring to breathe. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I have fallen in love with you," Nathan said, his voice steady and sure. "I know it might be too soon. I know you might not feel the same way, and that is all right. I do not want to pressure you or make you uncomfortable. But I could not let another day pass without being honest about my feelings." "You love me," Lydia whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I do." Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "You are beautiful and strong and kind, and I am in awe of you every single day." "I thought you only saw me as someone to help," Lydia said, her voice breaking. "Someone broken that you were fixing." "You were never broken," Nathan said firmly. "You were hurt, yes, but never broken. And I never saw helping you as a chore or an obligation. I saw it as a privilege. And somewhere along the way, helping you became caring about you, and caring about you became loving you." Lydia launched herself forward, wrapping her arms around his neck and burying her face in his shoulder. Nathan held her gently, his strong arms encircling her, and she felt safer than she had ever felt in her life. "I love you too," she said into his shirt. "I have been so scared to admit it, so scared you would send me away." "I would never send you away," Nathan murmured into her hair. "Never. You belong here with me for as long as you will have me." She pulled back slightly to look up at him, and the love shining in his eyes took her breath away. "Can I kiss you?" she asked shyly. Nathan smiled, tender and warm. "I would like nothing more." He cupped her face gently in his large, calloused hands and leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. When their lips finally met, it was soft and sweet and perfect. Lydia had never been kissed before, and she marveled at the warmth that spread through her entire body, at the way Nathan held her like she was something precious and fragile. When they finally pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said again. "And I will spend every day proving to you that you deserve to be loved." "I am starting to believe it," Lydia whispered. "Because of you." They sat by the fire for hours, holding each other, talking about their feelings and their hopes for the future. Nathan told her about his late wife, about how he had loved her deeply, but that loving Lydia did not diminish that. It was simply a different chapter in his life. Lydia told him about her fears, about how sometimes she still woke up expecting to be back in Marcus's house, about how she was learning to trust that this happiness was real. "It is real," Nathan assured her. "This is your life now, Lydia, our life." On Christmas morning, Nathan gave her a gift he had been working on for weeks, a beautiful coat made from rabbit fur he had trapped himself. It was soft and warm and fit her perfectly. "You made this?" Lydia asked in wonder, running her hands over the careful stitching. "I did. I wanted you to have something that was just yours, something to keep you warm." He helped her put it on, and she spun in a circle, delighting in the weight and warmth of it. "I love it. I love you." She kissed him again, more confidently this time, and he responded with enthusiasm, pulling her close. Her gift for him was simpler but no less heartfelt. She had been knitting a scarf from wool she had unraveled from an old blanket, working on it in secret whenever he was out of the cabin. It was not perfect, her stitches a little uneven, but she had put love into every row. "It is wonderful," Nathan said, wrapping it around his neck immediately. "I will treasure it always." They spent Christmas Day in happy companionship, cooking together, playing simple games, reading and talking. In the evening, as they lay together on the bed, Lydia finally wrapped in Nathan's arms in a way that felt safe and right. She reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few months. She had gone from a terrified, beaten-down woman who believed she deserved nothing, to someone who was loved and cherished, who had found joy and peace and a future full of possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, his deep voice rumbling in his chest beneath her ear. "About how grateful I am," Lydia said, "about how you saved my life." "You saved yourself," Nathan corrected gently. "You made the choice to leave. You made the choice to ask for help. I just provided the means." "You did much more than that," Lydia insisted. "You spoke kindness to me until I believed I deserved it. You showed me what love is supposed to look like. You gave me everything." Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "And you gave me a reason to live again, to hope again. We saved each other, Lydia." She smiled against his chest, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. They had both been alone and hurting, and they had found healing in each other. As winter deepened, and the snow piled high around the cabin, Nathan and Lydia settled into a life of quiet domesticity and growing love. They worked together to maintain the camp, to hunt and trap and prepare food. They talked for hours by the fire, learning everything about each other, building a foundation of friendship and trust beneath the romantic love. Nathan was endlessly patient with her as she learned to navigate physical intimacy. He never pushed, never demanded, always waited until she initiated contact. When they finally made love for the first time, on a cold January night when the wind howled outside and the fire crackled beside them, it was gentle and beautiful and healing. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked afterward, holding her close and stroking her hair. "I am more than all right," Lydia said, her voice full of wonder. "I never knew it could be like that, gentle and loving." "That is how it is supposed to be," Nathan said. "Two people who care about each other, sharing something beautiful." As the weeks passed, Lydia bloomed under Nathan's love and care. She gained weight, her face filling out and losing the gaunt, hunted look she had worn when she first arrived. Her hair grew longer and shinier, no longer brittle from malnutrition. But more than the physical changes, she grew confident and happy. She laughed often, something Nathan said was the most beautiful sound in the world. She smiled easily. She met his eyes without fear. "I like who I am becoming," she told him one day as they worked together to repair a fence in the corral. "With you, I feel like the person I was always supposed to be." "You are exactly who you were always supposed to be," Nathan said, leaning over to kiss her cheek. "I have not changed you, Lydia. I have just given you the safety to become yourself." In March, as the snow began to melt and the first signs of spring appeared in the mountains, Nathan asked Lydia to marry him. They were sitting by the stream that ran near the cabin, watching the water rush over the rocks when he took her hand. "I know we have only been together a few months," he said, "but I cannot imagine spending my life with anyone else. Will you marry me, Lydia? Will you be my wife?" Lydia's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears this time. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." Nathan pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply, and she felt the last piece of her broken heart click into place. She was loved. She was safe. She was home. They were married in April by a traveling preacher who sometimes passed through the mountains. Samuel and Martha from the trading post served as witnesses, making the long journey up to the camp to celebrate with them. It was a simple ceremony, but it was perfect. Lydia wore a simple blue dress that Martha had helped her make, and Nathan wore his best buckskin shirt and a new pair of pants he had ordered special. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Nathan kissed her for the first time as her husband, Lydia felt joy so intense it almost overwhelmed her. This man, this strong, gentle, patient man, was hers. Forever. "I love you, Mrs. Voss," Nathan murmured against her lips. "I love you, Mr. Voss," Lydia replied, grinning so wide her cheeks hurt. The celebration was small but joyful. Martha had brought a cake, and Samuel had brought whiskey, and they spent the evening eating and drinking and laughing. When their guests finally left the next morning, Lydia and Nathan stood together watching them go, Nathan's arm around her waist. "Are you happy?" Nathan asked. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," Lydia said. "You have given me everything, Nathan. A home, safety, love, a future. I do not know how I will ever thank you enough." "You thank me every day just by being yourself," Nathan said. "By loving me, by making this place a home. That is more than enough, Lydia. That is everything." As spring turned into summer, Lydia discovered she was pregnant. The realization filled her with equal parts joy and terror. She had seen what childbirth had done to Nathan's first wife, and she knew he must be thinking about that too. But when she told him, his face lit up with such pure happiness that her fears diminished. "We are going to have a baby?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "We are," Lydia confirmed, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "In late December, the doctor in town thinks." Nathan pulled her into a tight embrace. "This is wonderful news, the best news." He pulled back, his expression turning serious. "But we need to make sure you have proper care. I will not lose you, Lydia, I cannot." "You will not lose me," Lydia said firmly. "I am strong, stronger than I ever knew thanks to you." Over the following months, Nathan was even more protective and attentive than usual. He insisted they make regular trips down to the town nearest the mountains, where a doctor could check on Lydia and the baby. He read everything he could find about pregnancy and childbirth. He prepared the cabin meticulously, making sure they had everything they might need. Lydia found his concern touching, but she also had to gently remind him sometimes that she was pregnant, not fragile. "I can still chop vegetables," she said with exasperation one day when he tried to take the knife from her hands. "I am not going to break." "I know," Nathan said sheepishly. "I just worry." "I know you do, but worrying too much does not help either of us." She reached up to cup his bearded cheek. "I love you for caring, but you have to trust that I know my own body." As autumn arrived and Lydia's belly swelled with their growing child, she and Nathan spent long evenings talking about their hopes and dreams for their family. Nathan told her about his late son, how he had held him for just a few minutes before he died, how he had never stopped loving him even though he was gone. "This baby will not replace him," Nathan said, "but it will be a new beginning. A chance for both of us to have the family we have always wanted." "What if I am a bad mother?" Lydia asked quietly one night. "What if I do not know how to love a child properly? My mother was not exactly a good example." "You will be a wonderful mother," Nathan said with absolute conviction. "I have seen how gentle and caring you are with the animals, with me, with everything in your life. You have so much love to give, Lydia. That baby is going to be so lucky to have you." In early December, as the first snow of the season began to fall, Lydia went into labor. Nathan had arranged for a midwife from town to come stay with them for the last few weeks of her pregnancy, and the woman was a calm, capable presence as the contractions began. The labor was long and difficult. As the hours stretched on and Lydia's pain intensified, Nathan paced the cabin like a caged animal, desperate to help but unable to do anything except hold her hand when the midwife allowed it. "I am scared," Lydia gasped between contractions. "Nathan, I am so scared." "I know, love, I know." He pressed a kiss to her sweaty forehead. "But you are strong, stronger than you know. You can do this. Stay with me," she pleaded. "Do not leave." "I am not going anywhere," Nathan promised. "I will be right here the whole time." And he was. Even when the midwife tried to shoo him out, Nathan refused to leave Lydia's side. He held her hand, wiped her face with cool cloths, spoke words of encouragement and love. And when their son finally entered the world in the early hours of the morning, his lusty cries filling the cabin, Nathan wept with relief and joy. "A boy," the midwife announced, placing the squalling infant on Lydia's chest. "A healthy baby boy." Lydia looked down at her son, at his scrunched-up red face and flailing fists, and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. "He is perfect," she whispered. "He is," Nathan agreed, his voice thick with emotion. He gently touched the baby's tiny hand, and the infant immediately grasped his finger. "Hello, little one. Welcome to the world." They named him Thomas after Nathan's father. Thomas Voss, born in a cabin in the mountains of Nevada to parents who had found each other against all odds. The first few months of parenthood were exhausting but joyful. Lydia had never been happier, even with the sleepless nights and constant demands of a newborn. Nathan was a devoted father, taking his turns walking the floor with Thomas when he fussed, changing diapers without complaint, marveling at every little milestone. "He smiled at me today," Nathan would announce with pride. "A real smile, not just gas." "He is going to be spoiled rotten," Lydia said with affection, watching Nathan cradle their son with infinite gentleness. "Good," Nathan replied. "Every child should be spoiled with love." As winter gave way to spring, and Thomas grew from a tiny newborn into a chubby, happy baby, Lydia reflected often on the journey that had brought her to this place. Just 18 months ago, she had been a broken woman who believed she deserved nothing but cruelty. Now she was a wife and mother, cherished and valued, living a life filled with love and purpose. One warm spring evening, as they sat on the porch watching Thomas play on a blanket in the grass, Lydia leaned against Nathan's shoulder. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking me in that day at the trading post?" "Not for a single second," Nathan said immediately. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, Lydia. You and Thomas. You are my whole world. You saved my life," Lydia said softly. "In every way a person can be saved." "And you saved mine," Nathan replied. "I was just existing before you came along, not really living. You brought me back to life, taught me how to love again, gave me a family. I am the one who should be grateful." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching their son discover a dandelion and squeal with delight. Finally, Lydia spoke again. "I used to think I would never be happy, that I did not deserve happiness." She looked up at Nathan. "You proved me wrong." You spoke kindness to me until I believed I deserved it, and now look at us. We have built something beautiful." Nathan kissed her temple. "We have built a life together, a good life. And this is just the beginning, Lydia. We have so many years ahead of us, so many adventures to share." "I cannot wait," Lydia said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. As the years passed, their family grew. 2 years after Thomas, they welcomed a daughter they named Grace. 3 years after that, another son named Daniel arrived. The cabin expanded to accommodate their growing family, with additional rooms built onto the original structure. Lydia bloomed in her role as wife and mother. The frightened, beaten-down woman she had once been was now a distant memory, replaced by someone confident and capable and deeply happy. She taught her children to read, to cook, to appreciate the beauty of the mountains. She ran the household with efficiency and filled it with love and laughter. Nathan remained the same steady, loving presence he had always been. He taught his sons to hunt and trap, taught his daughter to track and shoot. He treated all his children with the same gentle firmness, raising them to be strong but kind. And he loved Lydia more with each passing year, never taking for granted the gift of her presence in his life. Sometimes, usually late at night when the children were asleep, Lydia would tell Nathan about her old life, about Marcus and the fear and the abuse. The memories had lost much of their power over the years, but they were still there, a reminder of where she had come from. "Do you think he is still alive?" she asked one night. "I do not know," Nathan said honestly. "Does it matter?" Lydia considered this. "No," she said finally. "Not anymore. He cannot hurt me now. I am not that scared girl anymore." "No, you are not," Nathan agreed. "You are a strong, capable woman, a wonderful mother, an amazing wife. You are exactly who you were always meant to be." When Thomas was 16, a young man now himself, he asked his mother about her past. They were working together in the garden, and the question came out of nowhere. "What was your life like before you met Pa?" he asked. Lydia sat back on her heels, considering her answer. She had always been honest with her children, but she had never gone into great detail about her early life. "It was hard," she said finally. "I lived with a man who was cruel to me. I was very unhappy and very scared." "How did you get away?" "Your father helped me," Lydia said, smiling at the memory. "I gathered my courage and went looking for help, and he gave it to me without hesitation. He saved my life, Thomas. In every way a person can be saved." Thomas looked at her with his father's eyes. "I am glad you found each other," he said simply. "So am I, sweetheart. So am I." On their 20th wedding anniversary, Nathan took Lydia back to the place where he had first spoken to her at the trading post. Samuel and Martha were long since retired, and the post was under new management now, but the place still held memories for both of them. "I knew," Nathan said as they stood in the spot where they had first met. "The moment I saw you, I knew you were special. I did not understand what I was feeling at the time, but looking back, I think I fell in love with you right then and there." "I thought you were being kind just to mock me," Lydia admitted. "I could not understand why a stranger would care whether I was standing in the sun or not." "I cared because I saw someone suffering and I wanted to help," Nathan said. "And I kept caring because I saw someone beautiful and strong and deserving of so much more than she had been given." "You gave me everything," Lydia said, taking his hand. "A life worth living, a family, love, hope. Everything." "You gave me just as much," Nathan insisted. "You brought light back into my darkness. You made me whole again." They stood together in the fading light, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life of love and meaning from the ashes of their separate pains. As they rode back to their cabin that evening, Lydia looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky and felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. She had started with nothing, believing she deserved nothing, and now she had everything. She had never heard a kind word spoken in her youth, but a mountain man had spoken kindness to her until she believed she deserved it. And in believing, she had found the courage to accept the love he offered, to build a life with him, to become the person she was always meant to be. It was more than she had ever dreamed possible. It was everything. Years continued to pass in the mountains. Thomas grew into a man much like his father, strong and kind and protective. He married a good woman from town and built his own cabin not far from his parents. Grace became a teacher, eventually running a small school for the scattered mountain families. Daniel followed in his father's footsteps as a trapper and hunter, loving the wild places as much as Nathan did. Nathan and Lydia watched their children grow and build their own lives with pride and joy. They became grandparents multiple times over, and their cabin was often filled with the laughter and chaos of visiting grandchildren. Through it all, their love remained constant and deep. They had weathered the challenges of life together, supported each other through difficult times, celebrated victories together. They were partners in every sense of the word, united by a bond that had been forged in kindness and strengthened by years of shared experience. When Nathan was 65 and Lydia 60, they sat on their porch one summer evening much like they had done countless times before. Their hair was gray now, their bodies bearing the marks of age and hard work, but their love was as strong as ever. "Do you remember the first thing I ever said to you?" Nathan asked, taking her hand in his. Lydia smiled. "You told me there was shade by the water trough if I wanted to rest." Such simple words, Nathan mused, but they changed everything. "They did," Lydia agreed. "Because they were the first kind words anyone had spoken to me in so long. They made me believe that maybe, just maybe, life could be different." "I am so glad I spoke to you that day," Nathan said. "So glad you had the courage to seek help. So glad for every moment we have had together." "Me too," Lydia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Nathan. I have loved you since the beginning, and I will love you until the end." "And I love you," Nathan replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Always and forever." As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Nathan and Lydia sat together in peaceful contentment. Their lives had not been easy, and the beginning had been marked by suffering and struggle. But they had found each other, and in finding each other, they had found healing and hope, and a love that would last a lifetime. Lydia had started her journey believing she deserved nothing but cruelty. But through Nathan's patient kindness, through his unwavering belief in her worth, she had learned to see herself differently. She had learned that she deserved love and respect and happiness. She had learned that she was strong and capable and worthy of good things. And Nathan, who had lost everything and retreated into solitude, had learned that it was possible to love again, to open his heart to another person, to build a new life from the ashes of the old. Lydia had taught him that healing was possible, that joy could return even after the deepest grief. They had saved each other, truly. Not in a dramatic, instantaneous way, but slowly, through countless small acts of kindness and love, through patience and understanding and unwavering support, through building a life together, one day at a time. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Nathan and Lydia remained on the porch, holding hands and watching the night arrive. They did not need words anymore. After all these years, they could communicate in silence, their hearts speaking a language all their own. This was their happy ending, but it was also their happy continuation. Because their story was not just about falling in love and overcoming obstacles. It was about building a life together, day after day, year after year. It was about choosing each other again and again, through good times and bad, through challenges and triumphs. It was about two broken people who had found wholeness in each other. And as they sat together under the stars, surrounded by the mountains that had given them sanctuary, with a family they had built together and decades of love behind them, both Nathan and Lydia knew they had found something rare and precious. They had found home. They had found healing. They had found love, and that truly was everything. The end.